Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even if it's shitty, this is a conversation of an adult nature. Rather listen to it when the kids aren't around. It's going to be upsetting. Please put in those earphones. Take your time, okay? You have been sold a narrative of the xenophobic South Africa. You've been told a narrative of people in this country who are too dumb to realize that they were in apartheid. A narrative of people who hate their fellow African brothers. You've been sold that kind of narrative. But the reason for that is they want to draw attention away from this kind of thing. This is behind what Operation Dudula is so passionate about. This is behind what South Africa was infuriated about, considering a certain controversial beauty pageant. The real reason why the beautiful Mia Leroux was chosen, okay? She was chosen because she's actually a South African citizen, irrespective of race. But you guys don't want to understand that. For further information, check my channel, right? She was not the only person that was runner-up for that. Ooh, now we're going down a rabbit hole. But there's a certain reason that a certain person left. Because she didn't want to be questioned. Her family didn't want to be questioned. They didn't show up to their hearings. This is the reason the song and dance of xenophobia and the song and dance of the demonized South Africa, and the song and dance of the dumb South Africa has to go around the world to protect this. To protect this. So when you use that label on South Africa, you are complicit in this. We're going to be watching a short film now. It has to do with human trafficking in South Africa, a trap into which far too many people across the African continent from Cape to Cairo are often caught into by their fellows. By their fellows. And then I'm going to show you factual receipts. But in this movie, you're going to see writing on the wall. It symbolizes the South Africans that are trying to speak out against it, that nobody's listening to. The ones that are made into a specter and a demon, so that you discredit them. Right? And it symbolizes what actually happens all too often. We'll get into how often exactly right after this video. If I am copyrighted, I will put a silent version of this video in. Do then, in that case, check the comments in, not the comments, check the description. I shall insert a link. But they want to get away with this with impunity. And so they demonize the Republic of South Africa. Let us watch, boys, girls, and they, thems.
I'm telling you, it's amazing. South Africa, you have to come with me.
How would I even get there?
Don't worry, they are gonna love you. That body, you could definitely be a model.
You really think so?
Absolutely. Think about your family. You can send money home. They will be so proud of you.
Okay, so let's start again. Okay, so she's walking there and she's promising that the woman's going to have this blue skies fairy tale South Africa, right? There is a taxi representing South Africans. That is something invented by South Africans, by black South Africans especially. And it says they will take away your passport. They do that at the border. They'll go, no, we're just handing it in. You don't see it again. Then she's telling her she's going to be a model, this, that, and the other thing. South African, the writing on the wall. That's what it represents. It's very symbolic. You will be what? You will be a what kind of a slave? She walks and she walks and she walks. And then there's the South African silently screaming. No one able to hear his voice. No one able to hear the voice of Mzansi. That's what he represents. Trying to scream loudly. Please, listen, listen. You will be. He's trying so hard to say it. Check the link in the description for this movie. You will have no one to turn to. I have experienced this. One of my friends was a homeless illegal immigrant. He was beaten up by the cops. I tried to report the incident anonymously, right? And I was sent from pillar to post on that phone. Nothing happened. There aren't structures. We are well aware that it is our government, our corrupt officials that are involved in this. But when you keep paying them, when you keep sending your money there, you further exacerbate the issue. And as such, my beautiful city, Johannesburg, has become a hotspot.
Well, to the Cape Town Magistrates Court now, a foreigner arrested on charges of human trafficking has made a brief court appearance. 39-year-old Chibuki Noswi was arrested in Milnerton last week. A team comprising the Hawks and the police made the arrest while following up on information about an apparent human trafficking case.
So it cost the South African taxpayer millions for our Hawks and our police to go and sort that out. Hawks, if you're unclear, is our version of our FBI. They used to be called the Scorpions. Okay, here are a couple of facts about human trafficking. Okay, number one, human trafficking is the delivery or sales of person within or across borders. Number two, it is the third largest profitable illegal trade after drugs and weapons. Number three, and that is Johannesburg, by the way. So what you saw there was probably Parktown or Hillbrow, because that building over there is called Ponty. Okay, I grew up walking these streets. I just can't tell which angle it's from. It looks like it's the Parktown version, right? Oh, it's that street in Hillbrow. This is, I can tell you exactly the street. This is Bayers Nordia, Northcliffe. The road crossing perpendicular there is called Fifth Avenue on the one side and Milner Street on the other. Victims of internal trafficking. I'm so sorry, I should have read it. Nikki Men. Victims of internal trafficking taken from informal settlements and rural areas. So they also take our girls. Take our girls in the remotest parts of our country. Our country is the third the size of the United States. It's the size of the Eastern Seaboard, roughly. The Eastern Seaboard, though, in the United States, has 3 times as many people as the entire population of South Africa. That is how sparsely populated it is. Therefore, we are incredibly vulnerable to crime, particularly in less populated areas. So they end up in major cities, including Johannesburg and Cape Town, the more populated, so they can be invisible. Okay? Reasons for human trafficking include exploitation. What kind of exploitation? Forced labor. This happens. Domestic servitude. That is illegal artisanal mining. And the victims stay because they are forced into drug and alcohol consumption. So it's a whole ring. It's a whole ring that you are empowering. Food denial, withheld identity documents, and now what happens? Right? Make sure you go and like and subscribe. There are only 3 likes here. Only 555 views. Come on, South Africa. Let's go. Okay? Even the US government understands that our authorities are working with a lot of these foreign nationals.
Okay, let's take a look at this. A U.S. Department of State report alleges that some South African prosecutors, police officers, and an acting judge have been implicated in human trafficking. Some of the key findings in the report include trafficking from neighboring countries as well as rural parts of South Africa.
Trafficking from neighboring countries, right? And so you need to stop incentivizing these people and demonizing us who are trying to speak out.
Countries, as well as reports implicated in human trafficking. Some of the key findings in the report include trafficking from neighboring countries.
Trafficking from neighboring countries. Okay. Let's have a look. It's a hub. South Africa's become a hub.
Civil society organization Missing Children South Africa says that the country is experiencing an increase in kidnappings after the lifting of COVID-19 lockdown regulations. The organization was reacting to the recent...
Read the lifting of COVID-19 lockdown regulations. That was during Cyril Ramaphosa's reign.
Kidnapping of 8-year-old Abaria Detka, who was allegedly taken by 2 armed men while on her way to school in Cape Town.
The same Cyril Ramaphosa that has recently done what to borders?
Last week. Statistics from the organization indicate that at least 77% of missing children are found and that the country is a hub for human trafficking. Let's discuss this further with the organization's South Africa coordinator, Bianca van Asvegen. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Bianca. And I've mentioned it in my intro that the situation is quite dire. But as someone who works closely with this kind of information, maybe just paint a broader picture for us in terms of what we're looking at when it comes to kidnappings and the trafficking of children in South Africa.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Hands off. Listen. Look at the ugly truth. Look at it.
Good evening. Yes, definitely. We've got a massive increase of kidnappings and human trafficking that's happening in our country. We've got over 1,000 cases of kidnappings being reported monthly in South Africa. And that is quite a shocking number.
1,000 monthly, that will be 12,000 yearly. In 2 years, that'll be 24,000, etc., etc., etc. That is the data that they have. What about the unknown data? What about the unknown data? Let us look at a source from the green and white country talking about this, discussing it. If you want to call South Africa xenophobic, look again. Look again at what is happening as a result of things like identity theft. Look again at what is happening as a result of things like illegal immigration without documentation. This is what it causes. These are the people who are collateral damage in the war we are trying to fight while we are being silenced by people who know nothing and are taking the moral high ground. This is your truth. Look it in the face then call us xenophobes.
So it will be risky to turn on my video, but we can continue.
Oh, that's fine. It's a pleasure having you on board. Now,
It'll be risky to turn on his video. So why is he so afraid? Who is he afraid of in his nation? Question.
Martin, this is not the first incident of foreign nationals being rescued by police in South Africa, but looking at the number and...
So this is not the what? Sorry, my love. What did you say? This is not the what? Because people don't listen. Hulle luister nie. Volume low, more. Close your mouth.
Police in South Africa, but Martin, this is not the first incident of foreign nationals being rescued by police in South Africa, but looking at the number and...
Being rescued by police. You said what? Rescued. Did I hear that correctly with my ears? Rescued.
In South Africa. This is not the first incident of foreign nationals being rescued by police in South Africa, but looking at the number and also considering that they are undocumented. Now, would you say that this is a case...
They are what, my sister? Because people are obtuse. The people who are being rescued, who need rescuing by police in South Africa are
considering that they are undocumented.
They are undocumented. Undocumented.
Now, would you say that this is a case of kidnap or individuals who actually came into the country out of their own will?
Well, human trafficking, it's a very funny phenomenon. It's a highly risky business, extremely dangerous. And we are seeing that individuals travel to different countries not at their own will. And that's human trafficking. When they travel at their own will, that's human smuggling, where they actually pay money for people to smuggle them into other countries. This particular case, given the conditions in which these individuals were kept, proved that this is a situation of human trafficking, meaning that these individuals were certainly corrupt and probably promised jobs in order to bring them here to South Africa. So
they didn't care about keeping this man safe. Hey, they're showing his face. I wonder if I can put mine over it for whatever it's worth. Didn't follow instructions yesterday, and he asked so nicely.
It was human trafficking, and that's why they were all packed in one room, waiting for other assignment or waiting for other duties that they will do. This is a particular period. I know you mentioned that this is not the first time. Indeed, it is not, and I don't think we've seen the end of it yet.
I don't think we've seen the end of it. We'll see the end of it when you listen to South Africans. But see what happened. They were promised greener pastures. They were promised that they were going to be given better. They thought they're going to come for other kinds of labor.
This is a particular period. I know you mentioned that this is not the first time. Indeed, it is not. And I don't think act in one room, waiting for other assignment or waiting for other duties that they will do. This is a particular period. I know you mentioned that this is not the first time. Indeed, it is not. And I don't think we've seen the end of
work that they will do, waiting for other work that they will do. Those are foreign nationals. The victims are foreign nationals. The perpetrators are foreign nationals. The perpetrators, their allies, are South African corrupt officials that we are consistently trying to fight. Now, I told you we'll tell you when we need your help. This is when we need your help. You call it pro-black. You call it pro-black, nah, to demonize South Africans. Look very nicely. Is it pro-black to ignore the cry of these people? Look at them. Look very nicely. Pay attention to race this time. Look very nicely. Those are not South Africans. Those people come from your countries or similar. They are brought here as victims. This is what you are supporting when you'd rather patronize us about an apartheid that we are busy solving. Yesterday.
Of it yet. But Ethiopia is facing some internal conflict. Conflict with...
You know where else faced internal conflict? South Africa faced internal conflict. What South Africans in the majority did not do was hardloop weg. They stayed and they fought. And they went to a therapy session. The whole nation went to a therapy session for months. On TV. Which is what we are saying. That is how you solve the problem. Not coming to hide in our skirts. We've got work to do. We faced internal conflict. Only when we were chased away or banned. Ooh, yetta. Hey, yetta. That same apartheid that you keep rubbing in our faces was called internal conflict. Internal conflict, which was fought and toy-toyed for here. But you don't remember that, hey? You don't remember the toy-toying. The, what's the word for toy-toying in neutral English? Protesting. You cherry pick what you'll listen to.
Which is forcing many of them to flee. We've seen that before. The high turn of Ethiopians going to the Middle East was very, very high. But because of the situation in the Middle East today, I think has forced them to look southward. And South Africa is often the target. So many of these people who are fleeing conflict.
South Africa is often the target. That is not a South African voice saying it, ladies and gentle people. South Africa is often the target.
I think has forced them to look southward. And South Africa is often the target. So many of these people who are fleeing conflict in East Africa, Ethiopia being number one today, are looking southward. We call it the southern route, meaning South Africa is their prime destination. And
they call it the southern route. Now look at the flag of my nation. Does it show up there? It doesn't, nah, because my face is in front. They call it the southern route. If we went any further south, we'd end up in the ocean. Had no choice but to fight. Stay and fight. Listen now nicely. Come hier in your ear. Luister mooi. Luister bietjie bokkie.
Fortunate to see this. There are so many of them, not just Ethiopians. We have so many other countries.
Ek goed. Luister.
That, find themselves here through human trafficking rings.
All right, Martin, you did say this is not the first time, and there have been, instances of these kinds of occurrences. Now, but when you talk about kidnappings or trafficking of foreign nationals, yes, especially in Johannesburg, is it a common thing, or is this particular incident, one of its kind? In Johannesburg?
It is very common. The procedures for human trafficking.
It is very common.
In Johannesburg.
It is very common. The procedures for.
In Johannesburg.
It is very common. The procedures for human trafficking is what? Is that when you take people from their country, they are entirely under your control. And that's why we call it today the new slavery because you are in conditions of slavery. You saw the way these individuals were packed into that small room. That's how they are. Their entire life is controlled by the trafficker, their owner, so to say. And many of these individuals
They
will
rub in your face a slavery that's over. They don't even know who the exact race in South Africa was that was enslaved. So that they can do what? So that they can do so that they can perform what? That is the undercurrent. That is the iceberg I have spoken about on this channel again and 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 again. Those who have ears must listen. Those who have ears must open up. This is not a pretty reality. This will and does happen. It will and does happen. This happens. And South Africans are trying, first and foremost, to save our own. We're not going to pretend otherwise. We're not going to pretend otherwise. But we are also trying to be behind the people whom we cannot protect. We cannot protect them. I told you I would ask you for your help if it was required. Now it is. Will you raise your voice and actually speak out against this? Will you do what's right rather than what's easy? Will you speak up for the vulnerable? Will you support South Africa in her attempts to make sure that no more people are taken advantage of? Will you stop trying to silence the voices of those who are trying to fight for justice and freedom in our land? Will you take up the mantle and fight as we have and learn from us and do it in your own countries and say this far, no further? Will you take back your continent instead of preaching to a country that has already done that and is already engaging with class and peace? You undermine the black South Africans in my nation. You undermine them. You underestimate them. You talk about their colonial masters. The colonial masters right now are the illegal gangs that are doing this. Black people in my country have successfully fought for their freedom. They will fight for economic freedom. They're getting there. They are getting there. Do not put a greater weight on their shoulder. Listen. Have the courage to listen. They have handled it with extreme class. That which you mistake for folly is extreme class, extreme integrity, extreme grace. And they have been unwavering for generations. Unwavering in their fight to do what's right. It is not you that should be preaching to them. It is you that should be closing your mouth and opening your ears. This has been Nuance with Nikki. The nitty-gritty, even if it feels shitty, but it's what you have to hear. Grow up.